cold mountain air hung thick with the scent of blood and burning oil, the faint glow of the dying firelight casting jagged shadows against the cave walls. The body of Cletus the ogre still smouldered at the cave's entrance. His massive form sprawled where he had fallen, but there was no time for rest. From inside the cave, a massive orc with dark green skin and a chest covered in ritual scars, undoubtedly Brugor Axebiter, stood watching. He made no move to charge out and face the adventurers, instead measuring the battlefield with a calculated eye. The blaze still flickered at the entrance, and he seemed to recognize the danger. A tense standoff settled between the party and Brugor Axebiter. Sariel stepped forward, calling out to him. "What is it that you want? We don't have to fight." Rowan followed suit, trying to goad the chieftain into charging, a taunt meant to draw the orc out of the cave and into their trap. But Brugor did not take the bait. His grip tightened on his great axe, but he did not move forward. Then from within the cave, the heavy footfalls of approaching figures echoed off the stone walls. 2 bugbears and 2 additional orcs emerged from the shadows behind Brugor, stepping up beside their chieftain. The orcs seemed eager, gripping their javelins in tight fists, waiting for an order. Brugor raised a hand, and the orcs obeyed without question. In a flash, 2 javelins hurtled through the air, both aimed directly at Tavin. The first struck hard, piercing deep into his side. The second hit even harder, driving into his torso. With a choked gasp, Tavin crumpled to the ground, unconscious before he even knew what had hit him. Brugor hurled his own javelin, the massive projectile sailing toward the group, but it missed its mark, embedding itself into the dirt near Rowan's feet. The orcs charged. The first one ran straight into the caltrops Sariel had scattered across the battlefield. A shriek of pain tore from its throat as the jagged metal spikes sliced deep into its feet, rendering it unable to advance further. The second orc, however, was close behind. Too close. With an angry snarl, he shoved his wounded comrade forward, knocking the first orc face first into the ground past the caltrops. The second orc now found himself caught on the spikes, but he pressed forward regardless, swinging wildly at Rowan, but his attack missed. The group retaliated swiftly. Sariel stepped in first, blade flashing. In one swift motion, he drove his sword into the prone orc's back, ending its suffering in an instant. Tavin, despite his wounds, pulled himself back to his feet just in time to finish the remaining orc, his quarterstaff cracking against the creature's skull with a sickening crunch. Inside the cave, Aluin moved silently in her rat form, creeping behind the enemy, searching for a moment to strike from the shadows. Then Brugor Axebiter roared, hefting his massive great axe as he finally made his move. He charged forward with terrifying speed, closing the distance with Rowan in the blink of an eye. With one brutal swing, his axe cleaved through Rowan's defenses, knocking him unconscious in a single blow. Aluin seized her moment. She shifted back into her true form, raised her hands and unleashed a thunderwave that tore through the cave, blasting one bugbear into oblivion and sending the other stumbling back in pain. Brugor, still in a frenzy, turned his attention to Sariel, swinging his axe in a deadly arc. The blade connected, sending a sharp jolt of pain through the cleric's body, but he stood his ground. The fight raged on, the party throwing everything they had at Brugor. The massive orc fought with unyielding ferocity, but he could not hold against their combined assault. Finally, it was Tavin who struck the decisive blow. With a final powerful strike, Tavin's quarterstaff cracked against Brugor's head, sending him staggering backward, right into the radiant light of Aluin's moonbeam. The spell engulfed him, burning away his flesh with pure celestial energy. The orc let out one final, agonized roar before collapsing to the ground, his body still smoking from the divine light. With their leader dead, the remaining bugbear was quickly dispatched. The battle was over. With Wyverntor cleared of enemies, the party turned their attention to searching for valuables. The orcs had collected an assortment of weapons, coins, and fine goods, but it was Sariel who uncovered something far more valuable. A crude, leather-bound journal filled with entries written in Orcish script. Flipping through the pages, he discovered a detailed trade log. The orcs had been working with the spider, and among the list of recent transactions, one entry stood out. The shards had been given to the spider. The realization settled over them. The artifacts they had been sent to retrieve were already gone. As night fell over the mountains, the group chose to rest at Wyvern Tor, preparing themselves for the journey ahead. By midday, they arrived once more at the ruins of Old Owl Well. The stone watchtower stood against the barren landscape, surrounded by the ever-watchful undead that Zahir commanded. As they approached, Zahir al-Qassar stepped forward, his piercing gaze sweeping over them. "You have returned. Do you bring what I seek?" There was a moment of hesitation before Tavin finally answered. "No. The shards were traded away to the spider." A flicker of annoyance crossed the necromancer's face. He let out a slow breath, folding his hands behind his back. "That is unfortunate." Sariel watched him carefully, catching the subtle satisfaction behind Zahir's disappointment. The orcs were no longer a problem for him. The players had still done him a favor, even if they had failed to retrieve the shards. Still, he kept up the pretense of disappointment, and after a moment, he finally spoke. "Nonetheless, you have earned a reward for your efforts." Zahir offered them each a gift. Tywin chose to imbue his quarterstaff with necrotic energy, making it a bone-touched weapon, a weapon infused with whispers of undeath. Sariel, despite his reservations, accepted a bottle of shadow essence, the inky substance swirling ominously within its glass casing. As the party prepared to leave, Zahir gave them one final directive. "The shards must be found. If you wish to see Evern again, bring them to me." His words were a reminder of their unfinished task. And so, with no other choice, the party set out from Old Owl Well, their path leading back toward Phandalin. The journey ahead was uncertain. The spider's reach extended further than they had realized, and now they were caught in his web. And though they did not yet know it, the deeper truths of Evern's fate were beginning to stir.